Does it ever feel like we're on the cusp of something, big? Like all the pieces are somehow maybe clicking into place for a real shift?
Yeah, that's a really provocative question.
It is, and it's right at the heart of the article we're digging into today.
Right.
And if you're tuning in, it's probably because you're keen to understand those undercurrents shaping our world.
Sure, to get beyond just the headlines.
Exactly, to see the bigger picture.
Absolutely. So we're taking a deep dive into Dorian Cole's piece from Patheos. It came out last year, 2025,
Okay.
titled, Is a New World Dawning? And Cole offers this, compelling look at the trends he sees influencing the future of the U.S., with a particular eye on the role of younger generations in driving what comes next.
And Patheos, that's an interesting source. It brings together a really wide range of voices, right?
Yeah.
On religion, spirituality.
That does, yeah, diverse perspectives. So while our conversation today will definitely touch on broader societal shifts, it's helpful to know the author is coming from a place that considers more than just, the purely political.
Got it. Good context.
Exactly. So our goal here in this deep dive is really to help you identify what Cole sees as the crucial signs of the times.
Signs of the times.
Yeah, he actually draws this parallel to that old saying, about being able to predict the weather.
Right, but missing the big historical moments happening right in front of you.
Precisely. What are the significant shifts we might be overlooking right now? That's the question he's sort of posing.
Okay, so to get us started, Cole basically lays out his argument by looking at what he thinks are the major forces at play in the U.S. right now. Then he gives us his take on, how likely it is that younger generations will be the ones to really shake things up positively.
Right. So we're going to unpack those key influencing factors.
Okay.
And his overall level of optimism or maybe pessimism, depending on how you see it.
Let's do it. Where does he start?
He starts with this really thought-provoking idea, the concept of zeitgeist.
Zeitgeist, okay.
He describes it as this unique moment when a whole bunch of different factors line up just right, creating the perfect environment for, profound change. It's like history hits a point where something fundamentally new is almost inevitable.
And he gives an example.
He does. He points to the era of Jesus as an example of this kind of zeitgeist.
Interesting.
A time when, the stage was set for Christianity to emerge and spread.
Yeah, okay. It makes you think about those rare moments where everything just seems to converge.
But what's fascinating is the hurdle he identifies.
Which is?
Our inherent human tendency to cling to old ways of thinking, old perspectives.
Oh, right. Inertia.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He argues these deeply ingrained views can actually blind us to new possibilities even long after those perspectives are maybe outdated.
Like trying to navigate new territory with an old, inaccurate map.
That's a great analogy for it, yeah.
Okay, so from that idea of a prepared moment, he moves on to pinpointing the specific factors shaping the U.S. future. How many are there?
He identifies 7 major factors.
7. Okay, let's walk through them. What's the first one?
The first he calls desire for change, and he puts the spotlight squarely on Generation Z.
Gen Z. Okay, what's his take there?
He sees them as a generation that's largely progressive and significantly engaged in activism.
Right, we see that.
Their motivation isn't really about preserving the past, it's about actively finding solutions to problems they see all around them.
Action-oriented.
Yeah. And crucially, he recognizes their political influence is growing, which he views as, a positive force for potential change.
Okay, factor 1. Gen Z's desire for change. What's number 2?
Number 2 is world leadership and vulnerability.
Explain that.
Here, he brings in an idea from Malcolm Gladwell, about how even really strong entities can be undermined by their weakest points, their vulnerabilities.
Okay, I see. And how does Cole apply that to the U.S.?
Well, he argues that our historical leadership position, built on democracy and technology, is now facing challenges from within. Internal vulnerabilities. He suggests our long-held global dominance might not be as secure as we've thought.
Especially on the tech front.
Especially on the tech front, yeah. With AI advancing so rapidly, he contends the U.S.'s unique technological edge is, kind of fading as that knowledge becomes more accessible globally.
Right. He mentions an example.
Yeah, he points to how quickly China's DeepSeek essentially replicated advancements from Google's DeepMind.
Wow. So the playing field is leveling out fast.
Much faster, yeah. And connecting this to the bigger picture, Cole brings up a really striking point.
Okay.
If you look at indicators of national well-being, things like happiness, productivity, work-life balance.
Yeah. Where do we stack up?
The U.S. actually lags behind many other developed countries and even some developing ones.
Really? That's surprising. Or maybe not.
It raises a real question, about what kind of leadership we're actually projecting and if it's truly serving our own people effectively.
Okay, factor 3.
Factor 3 is artificial intelligence itself, AI.
Right. We just touched on it. How does he frame it here?
He sees it as this potentially powerful force for democratizing knowledge globally.
Okay, democratizing knowledge, but there's a catch.
There's a crucial condition, as Cole points out. It hinges on the willingness of companies, of developers, to share information.
Ah, right. Access.
Exactly. The tech has the potential, but its real impact depends on how widely it becomes accessible. Who gets to use this powerful tool?
Good point. Okay, factor 4.
Factor 4 is spirituality.
Spirituality. Okay.
Yeah.
How does that fit in?
Cole emphasizes its role as a core driver of values. And those values, in turn, fuel societal change, or resist it, I suppose.
Sure.
He points to recent Pew Research data suggesting that the long decline in religious affiliation in the U.S. might be pausing.
Oh, interesting. It's leveling off.
Seems like it, or at least pausing. And his interpretation is really interesting.
What's his theory?
He suggests it might be driven by a growing hunger for something deeper, spirituality, among younger generations.
Okay.
And maybe also a perception that mainstream religious institutions are becoming more inclusive, more engaged with social problems.
So a potential resurgence of values-based action, maybe from different angles.
That seems to be what he's suggesting, yeah.
Okay. Factor 5. We're getting through them.
Factor 5 is coordinated effort organization.
Ah, organization. This sounds critical.
It really is. And he uses that slightly cynical saying, a camel is a horse designed by committee.
Huh, right. To illustrate the challenge.
Exactly. How challenging it can be for groups to organize effectively, to design something coherent.
But the underlying point is serious.
Very. Individual passion, individual energy, it's essential, right? But it needs to be channeled.
Through effective organization.
To create lasting change. Otherwise, those individual efforts might just dissipate.
Yeah.
Not have that broader impact.
Makes sense. Okay, factor 6.
Factor 6. Politics.
Ah, politics. Always a fun one. What's his angle here?
Well, he paints a picture of the political landscape often being geared towards maintaining the status quo.
Yeah, sounds familiar.
Supported by, well-established, well-funded powers.
But he sees potential for change, too.
He does acknowledge past successes, like younger generations leveraging social media to help elect Barack Obama. That was significant.
Right.
However, he also makes a pretty critical observation about the 2024 election cycle.
What did he note there?
That the lack of a candidate who really resonated, truly connected with these younger generations, seemed to lead to lower voter turnout among them, which perhaps unintentionally helped elect their least preferred candidate.
Ooh. Yeah, that's a really interesting, complex point about political engagement and its consequences.
It really is.
Okay, finally, factor 7.
Seventh major influence, economics.
Economics. Can't ignore that.
Definitely not. And he really boils it down to a fundamental concern for most people. Just the ability to provide for themselves, for their families, basic economic security.
Absolutely.
He argues that when people are struggling economically, that understandably becomes their primary focus.
Yeah, everything else takes a backseat.
Potentially overshadowing other critical issues, influencing how they vote, what they prioritize.
All right.
He even refers back to a previous piece he wrote, digging deeper into these economic anxieties.
Okay. And trade. Does he mention that?
He touches on international trade, yeah.
Yeah.
Acknowledges its importance, but suggests its impact might be, overestimated compared to the health of the domestic economy for most people's daily lives.
Okay. Domestic focus matters most.
That seems to be his take.
Right. So those are the 7 factors. Gen Z's desire for change, U.S. leadership vulnerability, AI, spirituality, organization, politics, and economics.
That's the list.
Now, Cole takes a really interesting next step, doesn't he? He actually scores these.
He does. He offers his own subjective score for each factor. It's his personal assessment, which then adds up to a total confidence score out of 100.
A confidence score for what, exactly?
Reflecting his assessment of how likely it is that these new generations will actually drive significant positive change.
Okay, so what's the score? What's his level of confidence right now?
Well, his current total is pretty striking. It's just 44 out of 100.
44, wow.
Yeah. And he categorizes this level as ineffective currently.
Ineffective.
Yeah.
So basically, he thinks the forces working against major positive change have the upper hand right now.
Based on his analysis, yes, that seems to be the message. It's a sobering assessment for anyone hoping for rapid progress.
Definitely sobering. Does he connect this back to organization?
He does. He even references his book, Unleash Movements That Matter, where he really hammers home the crucial role of organization for lasting impact. He sees the energy, the visibility of younger generations, social media protests.
Yeah, it's visible.
He sees that as significant, but he suggests they might lack the organizational backbone. That structure needed to really translate energy into tangible results, that effective sting, as he puts it.
An effective sting. I like that.
Yeah.
So passion isn't enough.
Not on its own, apparently. And he makes another key point. Elected officials, politicians, ultimately, they respond most to the people who actually vote.
Right, constituents who show up.
Exactly. So even if there's tons of online activism, lots of passionate demonstrations, if that doesn't translate into consistent participation at the ballot box,
its impact on policy can be limited.
That's the argument.
Yeah.
It sounds like a central theme for him, then, is this yearning, especially among younger people.
Yeah, a yearning for a unifying political figure.
Someone who can tap into those core shared values he believes still exist.
Right, and offer real solutions to these persistent problems we keep talking about.
Okay. So the picture is a bit bleak with that 44 score, but does he see pathways forward to raise that score? He does. What's fascinating is how he starts mapping out potential pathways to a more optimistic future. A tipping point.
A tipping point?
Okay.
What needs to happen?
He estimates we need to see significant improvements in a few key areas from his list.
Which one?
Specifically, spirituality, coordinated effort organization, and politics.
Okay, how much improvement?
He suggests increasing the score for spirituality by at least 4 points, and for both organization and politics by at least 7 points each.
Right. And if that happens...
that could get the total score up to 62.
62. Is that the magic number?
He believes a score of 62 could be enough to generate real momentum, start a real shift.
Okay, but maybe not guarantee it.
Right. He cautions that sustained effort would still be absolutely necessary, but it could be that tipping point.
Does he see other ways to boost the score?
He does raise another possibility, learning from successful strategies used in other countries.
Looking abroad for solutions.
Yeah, he thinks that could potentially add another 6 points.
Okay, so 62 plus 6, 68. Oh wait, my math.
He actually suggests it could reach a more robust 75.
75, okay.
Which he thinks could create truly, maybe unstoppable change.
Wow. So there's a path, but it requires specific improvements, especially in organization and politics.
And spirituality, yeah, those three.
Now, some people listening might think, hang on, organization, politics, how are those spiritual concerns?
Does he address that?
He does, directly.
Yeah.
He argues they're powerful tools.
Tools?
Yeah, just like any individual talent or skill we have, and they reflect our underlying values.
So they can be used for positive change?
Absolutely. They can be vehicles for good in the world, for enacting those values.
Yes, there's always a but.
He doesn't shy away from the flip side. Those same tools, organization, political maneuvering can be, and often are, used by those resisting change.
Right. Those trying to maintain the existing order.
Exactly. It's about how the tools are used and by whom.
Okay. He talks about activism too, right? Some numbers. Yeah, some interesting stats about Gen Z. He notes a significant portion, maybe a third, identify as social media activists.
Okay.
And over half have participated in some kind of demonstration or protest.
So they are active.
Definitely active. But then he asks that crucial question again. Without that underlying organizational power, that leverage,
how truly effective can that activism be in the long run?
That's the question he leaves hanging.
Does he break down activism by other groups?
He gives a brief breakdown within mainline Protestant denominations, pointing out they represent a large share of progressive activists, but a much smaller share among conservative activists.
Interesting detail.
And he also mentions about a quarter of adult churchgoers are actively involved in community service.
So people are acting on their values.
Many individuals are, yes, through direct action and service.
Which leads into his thoughts on institutions, right?
Yeah.
Like the church.
Exactly. This naturally leads to his perspective on the role of institutions, especially religious ones.
What does he think their role should be?
He believes for these organizations to stay relevant, to be catalysts for positive change, they need to do a few things.
Like what?
Actively engage with and really understand new generations. Support the values they hold dear.
Okay.
Provide spaces for connection, for collaboration. And crucially,
let me guess. Help them develop organizational skills.
You got it. Help them build those vital organizational muscles.
Does he offer resources for that?
He actually mentions his own online course through Udemy, Understanding and Working with New Generations.
Oh, okay.
Says it's gotten some positive feedback, a resource for bridging that gap.
So ultimately, his message seems to be, what? Cautious hope? A call to action?
I think it's both. Cautious hope combined with a really strong call to action. He includes these very direct, inspiring statements, things like, together we can change the world for the better. And powerful reminders. With hate, we have more to lose than break the cycle.
Powerful.
And this one, our answer is God. God's answer is us. Together we make the world better.
That's quite a statement, and very action-oriented spirituality.
It is, and he introduces these intriguing concepts too. Probability space.
Probability space, what's that?
The idea that maybe all the necessary elements for change are already present, they just need intentional action to bring them together, like the potential is there, waiting.
Okay, and the other one?
Potential space, which is about creatively reimagining the purpose, the role of institutions like the church in this changing world, thinking outside the box.
So rethinking fundamental roles.
Yeah. And it's clear he's looking for dialogue. He encourages feedback on his work.
Right.
Even poses this tough question about separating religious institutions from government and also from more radical elements within society. It's complex stuff.
Definitely complex. Is he involved in any practical initiatives himself?
He highlights an upcoming community launch called New Way Forward.
New Way Forward, what's the focus?
Focused on developing practical solutions, creating lasting change, building that organized community of action he sees as so essential. And he includes that powerful quote from Helen Keller about suffering, how it can be overcome.
Right, so trying to put ideas into practice.
Seems like it, and in a really human touch, he reminds everyone about joy, about well-being.
Oh, so.
Encourages people to restore and recreate, take time to celebrate life, laugh, sing, and dance regularly, even every day, happy.
That's a lovely reminder. Amidst all the serious analysis, don't forget to live.
Exactly. We need to nurture our spirits, too.
Does he provide other practical resources?
Yeah.
Ways for people to get involved?
Oh, yeah. He provides a really comprehensive list of civic service opportunities.
Like what kind of things?
All sorts. Local kindness campaigns, environmental groups like Zero Hour, various church-affiliated programs, UCC, PCUSA, Methodist, People's Hub, stakeholder capitalism via the World Economic Forum.
Wow, a wide range.
A very practical guide for anyone looking for ways to plug in. He even mentions general resources on his website.
Educational stuff, too.
For those wanting to expand their knowledge, he lists some valuable resources. Online courses from MITx.
Oh, on what?
Things like becoming an entrepreneur and evaluating social programs. Skills relevant to creating change.
Very practical. And he mentions his books, too.
Briefly, yeah. Gives an overview. They cover a diverse range.
Oh, Jess.
Understanding spiritual lives of younger generations. Exploring core ideas across religions. Discerning prophecy. And even the future of work with AI.
Okay. So he's thought about this from many angles.
It definitely gives you a sense of the breadth of his thinking. His website is mentioned, too, for more info.
Right. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Dorian Cole's article, the central takeaway really seems to be this potential, right?
Yeah, potential for a new era, a new world dawning in the U.S.
But it's heavily dependent on younger generations moving beyond just individual passion.
And developing effective organizational structures. That ability to engage with those big influencing factors he laid out.
And we have to remember that current assessment, that score of just 44 out of 100.
Yeah, that ineffective currently label. He clearly believes significant shifts are needed.
Especially in spirituality, coordinated action, and politics.
To reach that critical tipping point he talked about, that score of 62 or higher.
So a lot needs to happen. Now, we really want to turn it over to you, the listener.
Yeah. As you consider these signs of the times that Cole's highlighted, what are your own observations?
Do you see similar trends playing out in your community, in the wider world? Does his analysis resonate? And maybe to leave you with a final thought to ponder. Cole really emphasizes organization, that need to amplify the passion and energy we see.
Right.
So considering everything we've discussed, Cole's analysis, those 7 factors, what single, maybe innovative approach to collective action do you believe could have the most profound impact right now? What could really help steer things towards that more positive future he envisions?
That's a great question to reflect on. What's the key organizational innovation needed?